You ever walk into a room where you already know they've decided who you are before you've said a single word? That's exactly what happened to Malcolm Reed the moment he stepped foot into that sleek glass office tower on a rainy Monday morning. He wore his best charcoal gray suit, a tie his niece Cameron picked out for good luck, and confidence born not from ego but from excellence. Malcolm had graduated summa cum laude from MIT, interned at one of the top aerospace firms in the country, and co-authored 3 published engineering papers by age 30. But none of that mattered to the 3 white men sitting across the mahogany conference table, arms folded, smirks barely hidden. One of them, Brandon, the HR manager, glanced at Malcolm's resume like it was a joke, tapping his pen and not even trying to hide his sigh. "And you're here to interview for the lead systems engineer role?" he asked, tone laced with condescension. Malcolm nodded, offering a polite smile. "Yes, sir. I believe my background aligns well with the qualifications listed." Brandon said, flipping the paper over and not looking up. "We usually get applicants with a bit more polish." The other man, Scott, chuckled under his breath. "Yeah, no offense, but this is quantum tech. We work on high-level proprietary systems. You sure you're not more of a hardware guy?" Malcolm remained composed, answering their questions with calm clarity, but it was clear 10 minutes and they weren't interested in what he had to say. They asked nothing about his technical background, focused only on vague hypotheticals, and repeatedly interrupted him. It wasn't an interview. It was a humiliation exercise. "Let me ask you this," Brandon said, leaning forward. "If you were on a team of mostly Ivy League-educated engineers and you realized your approach was off, would you know when to back down?" Malcolm blinked. "Sir, I believe innovation comes from collaboration. If an approach is off, we refine it regardless of—" "It's a yes or no question," Brandon interrupted. "I'd reassess based on evidence and team input," Malcolm replied carefully. "Okay," Brandon said with a tight smile. "Thanks for coming in. We'll be in touch." Malcolm stood, offered his hand. No one shook it. They simply returned to typing and mumbled something about closing the loop. He stepped out into the hallway and took a deep breath, trying to shake off the sting. Before he could reach the elevator, he heard something that made him stop cold. Laughter. Loud, mocking laughter from inside the interview room. "MIT," someone scoffed. "Please. He probably photoshopped that degree. Did you see those shoes?" And the way he kept talking about teamwork, like this is some kind of group project. "Bet he applied just to check a box. HR will love this one." Malcolm clenched his jaw, forcing himself not to turn back. He'd heard worse in his life, sure. But not like this, not after everything he'd fought through just to be there. He took the elevator down and stepped out into the drizzle. The city moved on, indifferent to his disappointment. But something stirred in him. Not rage. Not even sadness. It was purpose. He wasn't just going to let this slide. Across the city, at that exact moment, CEO Veronica Langston was wrapping up a board meeting 2 floors up. A black woman in her early 50s with ice in her veins and a fire in her heart, she had built quantum tech from a scrappy startup into a $4 billion powerhouse. She also had no patience for racism hiding behind corporate lingo. She believed in merit, in vision, and in lifting others who deserved the shot she once had to fight for. On her way down, she paused outside the HR conference room just in time to hear the last echo of Brandon's voice. "These diversity hires keep getting bolder." That was all she needed to hear. She walked in without knocking. The room froze. "Where's the candidate?" she asked, eyes scanning their guilty faces. He just left," Scott mumbled. "Wasn't a good fit." "Did you even let him speak?" she asked. Silence. "What's his name?" she pressed. Brandon tried to pivot. "We have more interviews scheduled." "What was his name?" she demanded. "Malcolm Reed," Brandon finally answered. She turned on her heel and headed toward the elevator. "You're all done for the day. And Brandon? Clean out your desk." Downstairs, Malcolm stood under the building awning, pulling up a rideshare app, wondering if he should just head home and scrap the rest of the day. That's when a tall woman in a navy blue pantsuit with sleek braids stepped through the doors behind him. "Malcolm Reed?" He turned. "Yes. Veronica Langston, CEO of Quantum Tech." His eyes widened. "Oh, ma'am, I didn't know," she cut him off with a smile. "Come back upstairs with me. I heard what happened. That's not how we do things here. I want to speak to you myself." 30 minutes later they sat in her personal office. No HR manager, no smug gatekeepers. Just two engineers. Veronica asked detailed questions about his published work, his thesis, his systems analysis on quantum encryption protocols. She smiled halfway through his answer on layered security architecture. You speak like someone who's been doing this for 20 years. Feels like it, Malcolm replied softly. Every door has been locked. I just keep knocking. You just knocked on the right one, she said. I want to make you an offer, personally. I don't care about their petty egos downstairs. I care about your mind. Malcolm couldn't even form the words right away. Wait, you're serious? Very, she said. Lead systems engineer. Starting salary, $215K. Full equity package. Report directly to me. Malcolm blinked. Why? Veronica smiled. Because I see myself in you. And because you've already dealt with fire, now I want to see how brightly you can burn. They shook hands. For the first time in weeks, Malcolm felt like he could breathe. But that peace wouldn't last long. Because later that night, Brandon, the fired HR manager, posted a now viral video online, twisting the story, claiming reverse racism, and accusing the company of discrimination against white applicants. Within hours, conservative outlets picked it up, spinning lies about Malcolm's qualifications and launching an online harassment campaign targeting both him and Veronica. Her inbox flooded. Her investors got nervous. Malcolm's name trended, for all the wrong reasons. And by morning, someone had spray-painted "affirmative action hire" on the wall of Quantum Tech's downtown headquarters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The sun hadn't even broken over the skyline when Veronica Langston stood outside the Quantum Tech building, staring at the vandalism sprayed in black and red across the pristine white stone. Affirmative action hire, and beneath it, "You'll regret this." She didn't flinch, didn't blink, but inside she boiled. This wasn't just about her. Or about Malcolm. This was about every door that had ever been slammed shut on someone because of their skin, about every boardroom conversation that started with "culture fit" and ended with silent exclusion. This was personal. By 7 a.m., she had already called emergency maintenance, cybersecurity, and her public relations team. But most importantly, she called Malcolm. He answered after one ring. "Good morning, Malcolm," she said. "I'm guessing you've seen the news?" "Yes, ma'am." "My phone hasn't stopped vibrating since 2 a.m., he said, voice tense. "People found my personal LinkedIn. My family's info. Even my old college photos are circulating." "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "You shouldn't have to go through this. I appreciate that. But I didn't expect this kind of backlash. I just wanted a job. I didn't think I'd be a headline." "You didn't ask to be," she said firmly. "But the truth is you are now. So the question is, what are you going to do with that spotlight?" Silence. "Do I even still have the job?" he asked, uncertain. "Let me be clear, Malcolm," she said. "You have more than just a job. You have my backing. You earned your place. And now the whole world is going to see that." She paused. "I need you to come in today. We're making a statement. Together." At 9:15 sharp, Malcolm walked back into Quantum Tech. Not through the side entrance like the day before, but through the front glass doors. Cameras were waiting. Reporters shouted questions. Employees whispered and stared. But he held his head high, his suit crisp, his stride steady. Veronica met him in the main lobby and put a hand on his shoulder. "Let's show them what excellence looks like," she said. Together, they stepped into the atrium where a press conference had been hastily arranged. Veronica addressed the crowd first. "What happened to our building last night wasn't vandalism. It was a mirror," she began. "A reflection of what too many professionals of color face every day: suspicion, sabotage, and slander. But today we draw a line in the sand." She looked directly into the camera. "Malcolm Reed is not a diversity hire. He is an elite engineer with credentials and achievements that speak louder than any bigot spray paint. And he is the future of Quantum Tech." Malcolm stepped up to the podium. His hands shook slightly, but his voice was clear. "I didn't come here to be a symbol. I came here to build something real. But if speaking out helps open even one more door for someone else, then I'll stand here and take the hits. Because I know who I am. And I know what I bring to the table." The applause inside the building was thunderous. But the internet wasn't so kind. Online trolls doubled down. Right-wing commentators accused quantum tech of wokeness. Anonymous threats were emailed to both Veronica and Malcolm. And when the story reached national news, sponsors began to call. One hedge fund managing a significant investment in quantum tech issued a public statement condemning the company's lack of traditional hiring protocols. Behind the scenes, board members grew nervous. At an emergency executive meeting, one board member, David Kepler, voiced what others were too cowardly to say: "We appreciate the intention here, Veronica, but this situation is becoming a distraction. Perhaps it's time to quietly move Malcolm to a non-client-facing role until things cool off." Veronica's expression was ice. "You want to punish him for the backlash of your own employees' racism?" David shifted uncomfortably. "We're just trying to stabilize the company's image." "No," she said. "You're trying to make him small enough to be comfortable again. That's not happening." Meanwhile, Malcolm was trying to keep his head down. He buried himself in technical designs, diagrams, and prototype models. But even in the engineering bullpen, he felt the stares. A few coworkers were openly supportive: Jean from data, Melina from security, and an older black developer named Curtis who simply nodded and said, "Keep doing what you're doing, Youngblood." But others were colder, dismissive. They excluded him from key emails. One team lead forgot to invite him to a project sync. And when Malcolm submitted a brilliant idea for integrating AI-driven error checking into their system, his design doc was ignored, until someone else, a white engineer named Troy, submitted the same concept 2 days later. That version got approved instantly. When Malcolm pointed it out, the team lead simply said, "Ideas belong to the company, not to individuals. That's how collaboration works." Malcolm didn't argue. He took notes. And he kept receipts. But his spirit began to wear thin. Late one evening, he sat alone in the prototype lab, looking at a mock-up of the security infrastructure he'd been quietly building on his own. His phone buzzed with yet another hate message. Then another. Then another. "Go back to where you came from. Affirmative action trash. Quantum tech is dying because of you." He closed the phone and buried his face in his hands. That's when Veronica walked in. No entourage. No clipboard. Just her holding 2 cups of coffee. "You're still here?" she asked softly. "Couldn't sleep," he said. She handed him a cup and sat across from him. "They want you to break," she said. "You know that, right?" "It's working," he admitted. She didn't sugarcoat it. "Then you have 2 choices. You can give them what they want, or you can give them results they can't ignore." He looked up slowly. "They stole my idea." "I know," she said. "And I let it happen. On purpose." His eyes widened. "What?" "Because now I have proof. Emails. Timestamps. The internal system logs everything. And when the board reviews it next week, that entire team is going to be exposed." Malcolm blinked. "You knew." "I knew people would test you," she said. "But I also knew you were the only one here smart enough to build what we need for our new defense contract." She leaned in. "That AI system you drafted? I want it ready for demo in 7 days. Present it to the board yourself. Blow their minds." "Even the ones who want me gone?" he asked. "Especially them," she said. "They don't believe you belong. So make it undeniable." Over the next week, Malcolm barely left the building. He coded non-stop, tested models, ran simulations, and integrated every system architecture flaw he'd observed into a bulletproof upgrade. Curtis stayed late to help. Melina brought him food. Even Jean rewrote part of his code to optimize performance. Quiet allies had begun to gather. On the day of the board meeting, Malcolm walked into the main conference room with a laptop, a clicker, and a plan. Veronica sat at the head of the table, flanked by David Kepler and the other key executives. Troy and his team were seated along the side, smirking. "Let's begin," Veronica said. "Malcolm, you're up." He launched the presentation. For the next 20 minutes, he walked them through an end-to-end overhaul of quantum tech's security infrastructure using adaptive AI algorithms, real-time predictive diagnostics, and proprietary detection protocols he had built from scratch. It was elegant. It was fast. It was light years ahead of their current system. When he finished, the room was silent. Then clapping. From Veronica. From Melina. From Curtis, who had slipped in quietly. But David wasn't clapping. "That's impressive," he said carefully. But how do we know this is his original work? Malcolm didn't flinch. He turned to the screen. I anticipated that question. He clicked a folder labeled Logs and Proof. Up came the company's internal version tracking system, showing his original submission, file hashes, timestamps, internal chat logs where he discussed the idea with Curtis. This, he said calmly, is called integrity. David looked furious. Veronica smiled. Well then, I think we've seen enough. But before she could close the meeting, a junior assistant burst into the room, breathless. Ma'am, you need to see this. She held up her phone and pressed play. A video was circulating on social media. One recorded just minutes ago outside the Quantum Tech building. A group of masked protesters had gathered, holding signs that read, Stop Woke Hiring, Merit Over Melanin, and Fire Malcolm Reed. One of them had spray-painted a fresh message across the front steps. But this one wasn't just words. It was a threat. It read, You've been warned. Next time it's not just paint. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Malcolm Reed stared at the phone screen, the video looping again, the message on the steps burning itself into his mind. You've been warned. Next time it's not just paint. The silence in the boardroom was suffocating. Even the usual skeptics didn't dare breathe too loudly. This had crossed a line. It wasn't just hate speech now. It was a threat. Where is security? Veronica's voice was sharp but controlled, her eyes scanning the room. The assistant stammered, They're moving to secure the entrances now, but the protesters left before they arrived. Police are reviewing footage. David Kepler stood up, pretending to be calm. This is getting out of hand. Threats on our doorstep? Cameras outside? Media frenzy? Veronica, we cannot continue this circus. Veronica's gaze didn't move. Are you suggesting we fire Malcolm because of other people's hatred? I'm suggesting we mitigate risk. Move him off-site. At least until this dies down. He's not the problem, she said flatly. The problem is people like Brandon who created this mess. And people like you who want to sweep it under the rug instead of fixing it. Malcolm remained silent, jaw clenched, staring at the frozen video frame of masked protesters waving signs and walking away as if they'd accomplished something. But inside him, something had shifted. This wasn't about proving himself anymore. This was war. That night, Quantum Tech increased security across the campus. Badge access was reprogrammed. Emergency drills were run. A crisis communications consultant was brought in. But Malcolm couldn't sleep. Not just because of the threat, but because of the data. That afternoon, after the board meeting, he had begun reviewing the company's security network logs again. Something didn't sit right. The video of the protest had been captured on the front security cameras, but there was a 10-minute window where the feed was missing, corrupted, according to IT. That wasn't normal. Malcolm pulled the logs. A specific badge ID had accessed the server room 30 minutes before the cameras went down. He traced it. Troy Walters. The same guy who stole his idea. The one who'd smirked during his demo. Malcolm's heart raced. He pulled additional logs. File access history. Server commands. And there it was. Troy had accessed the camera logs and triggered a forced overwrite of the footage during the exact time the vandalism occurred. Meaning either he'd been there, or someone was working with him. The pieces snapped together too quickly. Troy hadn't just stolen Malcolm's idea. He was sabotaging him. Fueling the hate. Malcolm printed the logs and emailed copies to himself, Veronica, and the legal team. Then he locked his office door. The next morning, Quantum Tech buzzed with tension. Security guards now flanked the main lobby. News vans circled the block. And Malcolm was summoned into a private meeting, this time not with Veronica, but with the company's legal counsel, HR director, and Troy. Have a seat, Mr. Reed, the attorney said, eyes unreadable. We're here to discuss a sensitive allegation. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. What allegation? Troy has reported that you accessed restricted server logs and tampered with employee security files, the attorney said. He claims you've created a hostile work environment. Malcolm blinked. What? He also alleges you've been spreading false accusations to the media, the HR director added. Which, if true, could constitute grounds for immediate termination. Malcolm looked at Troy, who just sat calmly, arms folded, smug as ever. That's a lie, Malcolm said. I accessed the server logs because I noticed anomalies. I found proof Troy sabotaged the security system. I sent that proof to leadership last night. The HR director frowned. We haven't received anything. Check your spam folder, Malcolm snapped. And ask Veronica. I CC'd her too. But the HR director shook her head. Miss Langston is unavailable. She's traveling for a conference and unreachable at the moment. Convenient. Malcolm felt his stomach drop. Troy smiled. It's your word against mine. Malcolm stood up. I'm not staying in this room another minute without my attorney. He left before they could stop him. In the hallway, Curtis intercepted him. I saw you come out of that room. What's going on? Malcolm explained in hushed tones. Curtis cursed under his breath. Listen, Youngblood, I've been around this place a long time. I've seen how they move. You need to play this smart. Quiet. Strategic. They're trying to destroy me, Malcolm whispered. And they're using the company's own legal system to do it. Curtis nodded. And you're smarter than all of them. So beat them with facts. With receipts. Don't fight fire with fire, fight it with light. Malcolm took his advice to heart. For the next 2 days he laid low. But behind the scenes he built a bombshell. He found other employees who had witnessed Troy's behavior. Jean confirmed Troy had boasted about getting rid of the diversity hire. Melina revealed that Troy had tried to recruit her to monitor Malcolm's work. And Curtis, bless that man, had installed a secondary security camera in the server room months ago after his own files were once mysteriously deleted. A camera no one knew about. The footage? Crystal clear. Troy entering the server room. Typing in commands. Smiling as the screen flickered out. Malcolm compiled everything into a 30-page report with annotated screenshots, signed statements, and time-stamped logs. He called it Proof of Malicious Sabotage, Internal Investigation by Malcolm Reed. But instead of submitting it quietly, he uploaded it to the company's secure network, and CC'd the entire board. Then he waited. 2 hours later, chaos erupted. HR called an emergency meeting. Legal scrambled to respond. The board demanded an immediate review. And Veronica, who had just landed from her trip, walked straight into Malcolm's office with the report in her hand and a fire in her eyes. I just read this, she said, holding it up. Is it accurate? Every word, Malcolm replied. She didn't smile. But she nodded. Stay close. This is about to get loud. And it did. By 4 p.m., Troy was escorted out of the building by security. Word spread like wildfire. Employees gathered in clusters. Slack channels blew up. Quantum Tech's internal communication team issued a statement confirming an investigation into sabotage and misconduct. But the real storm was coming. Because someone had leaked Malcolm's report to the press. Not the watered-down version but the whole thing, screenshots, emails, video stills. By morning, every major tech outlet was covering it. Headlines read, Black engineer targeted by co-worker in tech sabotage scandal. Malcolm Reed exposes racism inside billion-dollar tech company. Troy Walters fired after whistleblower's bombshell report. But not everyone was celebrating. Quantum Tech's stock price dipped. 2 investors threatened to pull out. An anonymous internal petition began circulating, calling for Veronica's resignation. And in the middle of it all, Malcolm received a plain white envelope slid under his office door. No name. No return address. Just one line typed on a piece of paper. This isn't over. You think you won? Watch your back. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Malcolm Reed stood still, staring at the note in his hand, the words echoing in his mind. This isn't over. You think you won? Watch your back. A thin chill ran through his spine. This wasn't just office politics anymore. It had become personal, sinister, and silent. The next few days at Quantum Tech passed like walking through fog. On the surface, everything seemed calm. Troy had been fired, the official internal memo labeled it gross misconduct. HR issued a vague public statement praising Malcolm's diligence and integrity, and some co-workers even nodded respectfully in the hallway now. But the silence spoke louder than words. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered in break rooms. Anonymous comments began popping up under tech blog articles, accusing Malcolm of being a divisive figure, claiming he weaponized race for attention, and suggesting he was only promoted to protect PR optics. The higher he rose, the more they tried to clip his wings. But Malcolm didn't back down. He buried himself in his work, improving quantum tech's infrastructure, mentoring junior engineers, and drafting a company-wide framework to detect internal breaches like the one Troy committed. Veronica Langston called it the Reed Protocol. But the deeper Malcolm went, the more rot he found. In one audit, he discovered discrepancies in quantum tech's project funding allocations. Specifically, how resources were quietly being funneled away from DI initiatives and minority-led R&D teams. Someone upstairs was bleeding programs dry under the radar. Veronica was furious. They promised support, then hollowed it out the first chance they got, she said, tossing a financial report across her desk. We're not fixing culture, we're painting over it. Then let's strip the paint, Malcolm said. Let's show people what's really underneath. That's a dangerous road, Malcolm, she warned. Expose the system from the inside and it'll come for you. Hard. It already has, he replied. They vandalized the building. They leaked false accusations. They threatened me. And now they're ghost funding programs into extinction. If I stay quiet, I'm part of it. Veronica leaned back. You really want to lead this charge? I do, he said. But I won't survive it without you. She studied him. Then we go together. But if we do this, it won't be polite. It'll be war. Over the next 2 weeks, Malcolm and Veronica began quietly assembling a coalition. Curtis, Melina, 2 more directors. Even a white ally from finance named Lara who handed them folders with budget trails and whispered, I've been waiting for someone to do something. Together they built a report, 30 pages of data, evidence, emails, and testimonial proving internal bias, retaliation, unequal pay practices, and intentional sabotage of diversity initiatives. They titled it simply, The Truth Report. But releasing it wasn't simple. The board would block it. PR would spin it. Investors would try to bury it. Malcolm had another idea. What if we don't just send it to them, he said. What if we send it to the world? Veronica raised an eyebrow. You want to leak it? Not anonymously, Malcolm said. Not like them. We sign our names. We attach faces. We own it. Veronica paused. If we do that, they'll come after us both. Professionally. Legally. Maybe even physically. Malcolm looked her dead in the eye. Then let them come. On a quiet Sunday evening, they uploaded the report to a new microsite, www.truthatquantum.com. It went live at 6:42 p.m. By 7:30 p.m. it was trending on Twitter. By 9 p.m., TechCrunch had posted the headline. Black engineer blows whistle on toxic tech culture. CEO backs him publicly. By midnight, the Quantum Tech board held an emergency call. 2 directors resigned within 24 hours. The media frenzy was electric. Some called Malcolm a hero. Others labeled him a liability. Conservative pundits declared quantum tech infected with woke cancer. Malcolm's inbox exploded. Death threats. Job offers. Interview requests. Legal threats. His face was now everywhere, from news channels to podcasts to Reddit threads. Through it all he kept working. Improving systems. Answering questions. Helping other black engineers navigate the mess. Veronica's office became a war room. Legal counsel, crisis managers, PR reps scrambling around her as she made statement after statement defending not just Malcolm but the truth. This is not about politics, she said in a CNN interview. This is about people. This is about merit. This is about what happens when you build a system that rewards silence over integrity. But not everyone was on her side. One of the remaining board members, Richard Langford, a tech billionaire from old money, had gone quiet since the release. But one night after Malcolm left a panel discussion, he found a black SUV idling outside the building. The rear window rolled down slowly. Mr. Reed? Richard's voice, smooth like poison. Care for a ride? Malcolm hesitated but nodded. Inside, Richard handed him a folded letter. An offer, he said. For your silence. For your resignation. For peace. Malcolm didn't even open it. No, Richard smiled thinly. You're playing a dangerous game, son. Don't mistake momentum for power. This world doesn't belong to you. It belongs to people who know how to wait, and how to crush you quietly when you least expect it. "You're scared," Malcolm replied. "Because for the first time your silence has competition." Richard chuckled. "Then consider this fair warning." The SUV pulled away, tires hissing like a serpent disappearing into the night. The next morning, everything changed. A major investor pulled $30 million in funding. Another partner paused a joint defense project. Media sentiment shifted, accusing quantum tech of instability, leadership chaos, and corporate overreach. Veronica received an ultimatum from the remaining board. Fire Malcolm Reed. Or step down as CEO. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Malcolm Reed sat alone in the quantum tech rooftop garden just before sunrise, eyes fixed on the horizon, knowing today would define the rest of his life. The ultimatum was clear: either he was fired or Veronica Langston, the woman who'd believed in him when no one else did, would be forced out as CEO. It didn't matter that he'd exposed the corruption. It didn't matter that he'd improved the company's infrastructure, developed a proprietary AI security protocol, or risked his career to stand up for truth. To the board he was a liability. A spark they couldn't contain. A mirror they couldn't silence. He scrolled through his inbox, 300+ unread messages. Some offered support. Others reeked of fear, envy, or outright racism. His phone buzzed with texts from journalists, nonprofits, even the NAACP. But one message stood out. It was a simple text from Curtis: "Whatever happens today, stand tall. You already won." At 9 a.m. sharp, the board convened in the executive conference room. Veronica sat at the head of the table, stone-faced. Malcolm entered quietly, wearing the same suit he'd worn to that first interview, the one where they dismissed him. Now, the same room that once ignored him was about to decide his fate. Richard Langford, the most powerful voice in the room, cleared his throat. "Let's not waste time. The damage to Quantum Tech's brand is escalating. Our partnerships are in jeopardy. Investor trust is shaken. And the media storm refuses to die down." He looked directly at Malcolm. "We are proposing a transition. Mr. Reed will resign and be offered a generous settlement and NDA. In exchange, Ms. Langston remains CEO, and this matter is officially resolved." Malcolm didn't flinch. He simply asked, "So I'm the problem? Not the people who sabotaged our systems? Not the executives who covered it up? Not the bigotry that vandalized our building or threatened our staff?" Richard narrowed his eyes. "You are disruptive." "Truth usually is," Malcolm said. Veronica stood. "Before any decision is made, I want the entire board to see something." She pulled up a slide presentation labeled "Reed Protocol Deployment Results." One by one she showed how Malcolm's systems had reduced breach risks by 78%, improved infrastructure speed by 45%, and saved the company $4.2 million in operational costs over the last 30 days. The silence in the room thickened. Then she dropped the real bomb. "In addition," she continued, "I've secured a $50 million government contract based entirely on Malcolm's AI security model. We'll be integrating this tech into high-level defense infrastructure nationwide. That funding becomes official next quarter, assuming Malcolm remains here to oversee it." She turned to the board. "You want to fire the man who made us future-proof? Or the CEO who backed him? Fine. But you'll lose more than just 2 people. You'll lose every engineer who stands with him. Every woman who's ever been dismissed. Every Black employee who's ever been told to wait their turn. You'll lose the soul of this company. And once that's gone, no amount of investment will bring it back." Richard's jaw tightened. "Are you threatening the board?" "I'm telling the truth," she said. "And the truth doesn't need your permission to exist." After a long pause, another board member, an older woman named Evelyn, cleared her throat. "We've lost sight of the mission," she said. "If we silence Malcolm today, what message does that send? That this company punishes those who expose wrongdoing." She looked at Malcolm. "You're not the problem. You're the beginning of the solution." One by one, others followed her lead. The vote that was supposed to end Malcolm's career turned into a shift in leadership. Richard Langford was voted off the board. The remaining members agreed to publicly back the truth report. Veronica remained as CEO. Malcolm was promoted, Chief Security Innovation Officer. By 5 p.m. the news broke. Quantum Tech backs Black engineer amid controversy, corrupt board member ousted. But Malcolm didn't stay for the celebration. He took the elevator down to the garage where Curtis was waiting by his truck. "You did it, young blood," Curtis said. "No," Malcolm said. "We did it. All of us." He paused. "But this is just the start." That night, Malcolm logged into a private Zoom call hosted by a nonprofit called Tech Equity Rising. The screen filled with hundreds of faces, young black and brown engineers, coders, designers, and tech professionals from across the country. He introduced himself, not as a victim, not as a martyr, but as a builder. "I stood up because I was tired of waiting for someone else to fix it," he said. "If you're in this room, then you've already felt what I felt: doubt, dismissal, disrespect. But now you've seen what happens when we speak up, show up, and don't back down." He smiled. "The next time they say we don't belong, tell them, we built the table. Don't let others define your worth. Systems of oppression will always try to silence excellence that doesn't come in the package they expect. But when you lead with truth, skill, and integrity, your light becomes undeniable. Sometimes speaking up is the risk, but often it's the revolution." The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.